Hi, my name is Sarah Garner. I'm a realtor with the Royal LePage Supreme Realty Group. I have been a licensed full-time realtor for 18 years. And the markets that I serve, I predominantly in my past have worked almost exclusively in the Toronto and Toronto West areas. Recently, I made a great move to Prince Edward County. I've made some fantastic connections here, and so now I am also adding to my roster of markets Brighton, Coburg, Trenton, and I will go as far as Belleville as well. I've just recently made this move to Prince Edward County. Previously, I was in Toronto for many, many years. It's where I nurtured my real estate career. It's where I raised all my kids. I was originally born in Montreal, and with my parents when I was a young child, moved to Toronto. And then I had a brief 6 year hiatus in Latin America in Venezuela, where I was the controller of a small company, which was a fantastic and rewarding experience. I pride myself on being a mother of four daughters, and that has taught me so many life lessons. It's taught me how to be patient. It's taught me how to be empathetic. It's taught me the importance of human connections fundamentally. And I really feel that that combined with a really strong sense of what kind of a planet we're going to leave to our children and eventually our grandchildren, that those are things that they don't set me apart, but they are definitely very close to me and my value set. Real estate, especially residential real estate, is such a personal relationship based business. I think some people make the mistake of viewing every real estate as a transaction. And I have spent so many years making that distinction between transactional and relationship based real estate sales. So when I engage with my sellers or my buyers, I let them understand that I'm here to serve them and serve the importance of the real estate transaction to them. What are their needs? Where do they need to be? What are their priorities? And building on this relationship is what makes me different and makes me run a deeper sense of relationship with each of my clients. Transactions come and go, but real estate relationships hopefully last a lot longer than that. Sometimes real estate transactions can be a little bit challenging, and other times they just represent such a feel good end to a transaction. Recently, I was working with a young couple, Shannon and Duncan. We had seen so many properties, and they were in a very, very challenging price point. It looked like they may not be able to find something that they felt was suitable. And right kind of near where things were starting to change, and they were thinking, well, maybe we're going to have to rent a little bit longer. We came upon a fantastic property that really fit all their criteria in the East End of Toronto. And I was just so pleased that transaction ended the way it did. They again came to me through a referral, and I felt a really, really deep need to serve them. And so to be able to get them literally what was their dream house was just such a fulfilling feeling for both of us, for Shannon and Duncan, and for me. Worked with a lot of people who are transitioning potentially for the last time. So, older people who are selling their family home. And what I ultimately look for, not just in the transaction, but all through the negotiation process, is a win win situation, a win for my sellers and a win for the purchasers. So if I can come out of the transaction and feel that my sellers have really got what they wanted and that they have made peace in a lot of ways with this often really, really difficult change in their life. But what is so satisfying for me and where I get the most fulfillment is knowing that I have transitioned a client from one stage of their life to the next stage of their life. And that could be clients who are just recently having a baby, people who are making a major career change that have put them in a different place, or ultimately people who are selling their family home and potentially downsizing to a condo or a smaller property. That's where I really feel I've done my job. One of the things that I try to emphasize to every one of my sellers when they meet me for the first time is that I'm going to be there for them before the transaction, throughout and during the transaction, and well after the transaction has closed. I make a point of doing a 30-day check-in after a property has been sold, and then a quarterly check-in, and often I'll be back in touch with my clients yearly. Is an important part of the job that the end isn't when the transaction closes. When we successfully close, I want every seller to know that I'm still there. They may need referrals to trades. They may need referrals to professionals. I want to be that trusted advisor well after the transaction is closed to let them know they can always come to me with any questions or referrals that they may need in the future. I am an active donor to the Royal LePage Shelter Foundation. It is a wholly subsidized charitable foundation by Royal LePage Corporate. When I say wholly subsidized, what I mean is that 100% of the donations go directly to the causes that we support. The administrative charges, the people that are employed by the foundation, are all covered by the realtors' contributions as well as Royal LePage Corporate. Every year, the Royal LePage Shelter Foundation sponsors a major fundraiser. Several years ago, there was a fundraiser to hike 100 kilometers in the Sahara Desert. I thought this would be a fantastic way to give back to my community and to also specifically raise specific funds that will be given directly to the shelter, which I'm affiliated with. It was a rewarding experience, and I raised several $1,000s for the Shelter Foundation, which I'm so proud of. Navigating the process of selling your home is a huge undertaking, and it's not just me who's there. You need many, many supports behind the scenes: lawyers, home inspectors, photographers, and people at the brokerage that will also support the transaction. So over the years, I have amassed a stable of professionals that I can rely on. I can't fulfill every aspect of a real estate transaction on my own. And so, as I am a trusted advisor to many of my sellers, I also have a trusted advisors. I'm always happy to refer professionals, tradespeople, plumbers, electricians, contractors, whoever is needed to make the transaction complete. I want my sellers to understand that I'm here to provide those referrals and to make those connections that are really, really necessary to fulfilling the whole transaction, not just the sales portion. Not every transaction is going to run smoothly. Sometimes I have to pivot. Sometimes I have to be proactive in seeing that maybe a transaction is not on track to close as I would hope it would. Quite recently, I had a client in Curtis, Ontario. We had a firm transaction on their house. It was scheduled to close. They had already purchased a building lot that they were so excited about. As we started to approach the closing on their property, the buyer representative expressed some concern that the buyer's property had not yet sold. So, buyer's property hasn't sold. We have a bit of a domino effect here. How is my seller's property going to close? So, I really rewarded the buyer rep for getting in touch with me early enough, but I kept in touch with them. I realized that as the closing was approaching, things were still not looking that great. So what I did was I started putting the buyer rep in touch with lenders that I trust, lenders who have been able to pivot and get financing or whatever was needed so that their buyers could close. A big part of that was staying in touch with the buyer rep and making sure that they were putting the necessary building blocks in place that they were going to be able to close on my seller's property. Again, being proactive and being able to pivot is a huge part when things maybe are going south a little bit. Luckily, almost at the 11th hour, we were able to provide a slight extension on the closing, and the buyers were able to close. But keeping my eyes of the closing is so super important. Checking in with the buyer rep, making sure they're on track, making sure their financing is in order. Those are all things that are going to successfully close a transaction. Sitting back and waiting for commission checks, not going to do it. So again, time and experience has shown me stay in touch with the buyer rep, have a clear channel of communication that stays open. I also have the SRES designation, which makes me feel really comfortable dealing in the seniors space. I am now part of that club, so also have a special place in my heart for people who are transitioning from their family home into a smaller space, downsizing, whatever it may be. I just want to end this by saying that when you're hiring a realtor, and understand that it's them who are representing you, but it's everybody that's behind them that also supports you and the transaction.